Hello, Senor Jochen.
Hey, Namema, how's it going?
Pretty good. How's it going with you, man?
Yeah, pretty good as well.
Yeah. What is this we're doing here?
Well, um, I think to a good extent, maybe just a celebration of friendship.
Ooh.
Just really kind of looking at what good has come from friendship, from our friendship,
Mhm.
and how did that happen? Is it just magic, or can we can we kind of figure this out together? How the good things happen through friendship, something like that, maybe.
Well, I know what attracted me to you. I don't know what attracted you to me, but I can answer my part, then you have to answer your side, right?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure, go
There was
ahead.
it was a little just a little pause after you you finished. Um, I certainly remember Namema meeting you the first one, two, three times in like the lab space at the psych department at Columbia and thinking to myself, or like this, it wasn't even a thought, just the sheer positivity. Dude, here is someone who you could be walking in through the rain, drenched, and he would be smiling and say, "What's up, dude?" And having gone through a couple of periods in my life, especially earlier on, like my formative years between, I don't know, like age 8 and 18, which really kind of left, yeah, like some deep traces as to what is it, what is mine to figure out in this life? What is my baggage, so to speak? Yeah, I can say I have been dragged down, maybe not all the way down to hell, but like down quite a bit. And then to meet someone who I perceived in that moment as like he he's got some of the medicine that I need. That
Oh.
that was definitely part of it. This kind of feeling, yep, like I can learn from this. There's a source of wisdom here, a source of just practical put togetherness
Oh,
about the challenges of life and how to meet them and how to face them in this kind of like playful, playful way of like, yeah, that it's tough. It's tough to get this thing right, but I will not be discouraged by anything here. That was very, very attractive.
you're getting me thinking, like we used to do we did the Conclave retreats, which created a space for exploring what it is that is sort of interesting within our spirits that we don't really get to talk about. And obviously, like a lot of what was in our brain was sort of businesses and occupations and where we want to
North
go in
Star.
life, you know. But also, I feel like there was a space for compliments in there, right? There was a space for like, I met Jochen and Jochen just came across as this like super brilliant guy who didn't take things too seriously, but was sort of like super effective at the same time. And I'm thinking I wish like we need Conclave to come back so we can just create a space for compliments, right? Like I think it's very nice to hear what you said because I mean, how often do I get reminded that being positive, having a positive outlook and demeanor sort of lifts people up because a lot of times, I can even question myself, like, why aren't I tougher? Why don't I have like a tougher face? Why don't I walk around and everybody just like shivers when I walk by, right? Because sometimes the 5% of the time when you feel like that's useful, you end up feeling like you want that to be the case 100% of the time. So anyway, thanks for the compliment, and I wish we did more compliments.
But speaking of, and now maybe you could clarify how much I made this memory up. I have a memory of you telling a story of something that your mom imparted on you, and I probably have at least some details that I'm confabulating. But it's not even a story. It's just like a kind of piece of practical wisdom. Um, Whatever you want to do in life, make sure you aim for being the best at it. Even if you want to be, let's say, a burglar, just be the goddamn best fucking burglar you can be.
There we go. Yes.
But and I'm not saying that your mother was suggesting you to be a burglar, but rather no matter what it is you do in life, give it your goddamn best. Don't stop at 70% and think that's enough. But really like find something that you feel is so worth going for that you're willing to go the extra mile pretty much and then do that. And again, like this was something where almost coming full circle, I now feel, for instance, that with this inquiry, with these recorded conversations, I have found something where I can really spend easily evenings going through transcripts and
Wow.
trying to go in and learn
Hmm.
from that. Whereas many other things, yeah, sure, I can do 9 to 5 and be paid for that, but like once I leave here, I'm okay. It's not even that it was bad. But would I
Hmm.
want to spend yet another 4 hours on it? Probably not, right? And to really find something where you feel that way about it, because
Yeah.
that will allow you to really excel and to do that. And it was so funny that this is this one of the things that I have fairly tightly coupled with my inner experience of Namema, the person, the spirit, your spirituality is that piece. And whenever I sometimes feel, oh, I need a little extra fuel, I can go back to that one memory and really connect with that and be like, yeah, but I have something. And so like, here's the extra fuel.
And and the thing there is, and like we have some friends in common, and I've been able to be, I've been very lucky to be able to explore those ideas further. And it's, a lot of times people feel like, all right, I gotta go and dig and dig and dig and try to find it. But no, like it's always there. Like it's like you've always been a person who is interested in talking to people and understanding people. And friendship is meaningful to you. I mean, one of the most inspiring things that you did to me at the time was uh I think we had a friend in common who was in need. And um where we come from, where I come from, where that friend comes from, it's not very easy for people to like meet you at your point of need with like, here's $1,000, here's $2,000. Like money is a thing that holds a lot of people back in friendship. You're like, I'm just gonna draw the line at the money point, like I'm not giving cash. And you were like, oh, like I have X in savings. The way I think about this, if I lose the money, I lose the money. But I'm here to help. And that was extremely inspiring to me. But the point that I'm making there is that this idea of friendship to you, of personal interpersonal relationships, this idea is what my mom would say, you're a bugler and you're going with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then from my conversations with people, is that it's not that you want to be a doctor. It's not that you want to be a friendship expert. It's not that you want to be a friendship engineer. It's that you are a friendship engineer. It's just in there and now you're just fully exploring it. You know what I mean? And you can spend 10 hours a day doing it,
yeah.
which is
It's
like,
like this is amazing. And it's so funny because Chang Yu and we talked about this the other day and how, yeah, like the experience of how money has a very odd quality because it is such a raw form of energy, right? I can literally almost like it's a blood donation or something.
Mm.
It's like an economic blood donation. And where sure, first person comes and says, "Oh, I need a quart." Oh, yeah, okay, like, okay, here's some. And then the next person comes, "Hey, dude, I heard you you got some blood going.
Exactly.
Can I
Right.
have some?" And there's only so much blood you can donate. And so I can totally see that it is for people, and even like with like how we probably as a species came up, right? You wanna be much closer to your family than to your extended family, and then maybe to your close friends, and then to like, as further out you go, who do I give my blood to? So it is a very, very tricky kind of thing. But I feel incredibly lucky, and I think I shared this with you at the time, that I had this experience with my parents who really gave some money for a very extended period of time, like multiple years, to someone in the extended family, where it was very clear, um, we and I think it was because my parents fully recognized that the need was real and that the person had also come into this not out of like frivolity, right? It was not like someone who is a drug addict, and but it was discernment. There was like real discernment there, and saying, yeah, here is someone with a genuine need. We may not be closely like as close together, but they have a genuine need, and they got into it out of no fault of their own. And to the best of my ability, I have this experience. The person is serious about getting out of the problem that they're in with this money. And because I think by giving them the money, they can dig themselves out of the hole and then be running again. It makes perfect sense to spend the money, like to give the money, because they will be running again. And their lives is still going on for like tens of years. And with a little bit of my blood, with a quart of my blood, they can be going 40 years with that. That's a good investment, right? Which is different from giving someone a quart and then they're shooting up in the alley, and like 3 months from now they're dead anyway, right? So like, and
Yeah.
it was something to factor in, right? Because, and I'm really glad, and I can tell you that we had these experiences with people at the conclave at these weekend retreats, because it created certainly in me a sense, everyone here, as much as they're playful, they're not playing around. Like they're taking their lives seriously enough to come here. Because yeah, like going to a weekend and talk to people seriously about what your life is about for a weekend, that's a commitment. You have to reveal stuff about yourself. You have to, you have to go through that. And people will ask you some tough questions here. And
Yeah.
so it definitely helped quite a bit, because if it just had been one of your acquaintances that I had never met, my response might have as well have been, "Hey, Namema, it's like I certainly would have still felt glad that you feel safe enough to ask me, right? That would have been
Wow.
still something
Mhm.
where I felt like, hey, I feel glad that you feel safe enough to say, Jochen, I know of someone who has this need. That would still have been great between you and me. But my response might then have been, I can't say anything about this person. And that would have been a way different story. So,
Mhm.
but to at least not feel any hang-ups about it's a quart of my blood and I should never donate blood.
I have to say though, again, like it was a moment that really touched me. I mean, I was able to help at the time, but I also couldn't. I can't remember
Yep.
why.
No, it's,
Or no, I did help, but not to the extent that you were able to. So I think you came in first and I came in later at that point. But I remember thinking to myself, like the bell carve thing, right? So like you have people on the one side, and the people in the middle, and the people on the other side, right? And so for me, I was like, Jochen is either bottom 25%, completely naive, just has no idea the history of man and lending money and what happens in those situations. Or he has completely evolved and he's like on this. the last 25%. And turns
And
out
maybe
you were.
I'm both. Namema. Maybe I'm both. It's
And
a quantum
sometimes you need both,
paradox.
right? Yeah, and sometimes you need both. You need like because sometimes the naive is what pushes people to like this new understanding of like because sometimes people say the only reason why you know and his name is definitely very controversial now, but the only reason why Musk is able to you know land rockets and save him, the boosters, is because he was naive. Like he'd never done rockets before, and he just came in and was like naive and just did it, right? There was all these
Mhm.
people who were there and they couldn't do it. But I think when you did that, yeah, it opened my eyes a lot. But I think I understood the maturity in which you approached that giving. Um, and it was totally inspiring to me. And just going back to the thing that attracted me to you, I think that was later on like super important. And I also felt like you had an abundance mindset, which is what I was trying to cultivate, to be frank with you, in myself and also in the others at the conclave. But you seemed like you were like way like ahead of the game, right? Like I think you had that abundance mindset, and it was just fantastic to be around that. But even before that, I just tell this real quickly. You had been generous with your time. Like, I mean, I remember like coming to you with a problem about like, hey, like, can you tell me like one or two things about programming a device that you might be aware of? And we sat at your desk and you just talked to me for like almost an hour about this. Um, And yeah, like, and you laugh, but you're like smart and you're generous with your time. And I'm just, this guy is like, and we were in a lab where everybody was like just so serious. And like, here comes Jochen. Everybody needs his time, but he's laughing and nothing really matters and everything really matters. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad we talked about, like continued attraction later, but this was the story of my initial attraction too.
And so, I mean, obviously, I it's a great question whether back then I probably wasn't as out gay as I'm now, but like I assume you knew that I was gay fairly early on. And there is
Uh-huh.
no, it's not so much sexual attraction, but there is one element that I only also kind of over the years have come to appreciate, where when you said earlier about like a more like I forget even already what word you used. It's not that you said a more masculine face, but a more like assertive face
Tough,
or something,
tough
tough.
guy. Yeah.
And the one person that you reminded me of immediately to this day is the guy who played in Star Trek Deep Space Nine the title role of Captain Sisko, who before that played in this TV series Hawk. And I've never watched that series. The actor's name is Avery Brooks. Uh,
Okay.
and when he came into Star Trek, they he had pretty much like your kind of haircut and no facial hair. And so he looked pretty, like peaceful. No, I don't like what word to use, but not as tough. And then I think it's a 7 season, 7 year show. And I think season 4 or 5, at some point in the middle, they allowed him to say, "No, what, enough, take off your hair." And then they replicated his facial hair from the other TV series that he was in, Hawk. And he really looks much more coming into his element. There's kind of a maturity to him and a kind of, yeah, it is a kind of toughness, a
Hmm.
signal of, I know how to deal with the vagaries and with the shenanigans that life will throw at you. And that was something that, and I don't know exactly what it was, but there was something in the way that you presented that did attract me to you in the way where I really felt like I can pick up from this guy a little bit of like, because you're still very light and very, playful. But there was also an element of, if push comes to shove,
Hmm.
yeah, like no, no, I don't think that Namema is someone to fold. Where and it's not as though other people, felt like softies in the lab space, but I certainly felt that there was a kind of shrewdness, almost a kind of, push the right buttons on the mema, and he will kind of let you know,
Back off.
yeah, enough with the shenanigans here.
Hmm.
And that is something that to this day I still feel I need to learn. And in part, and this is even relevant for friendship, as I have discovered in the conversations I've had so far, how important it is to be open when other people come at you with a charge, but to do that in a way where you also signal to them, I'm not a pushover,
Hmm.
where it is really a give and take, where yes, you can push on me, and I'm open to receiving whatever problem you have. But if I ever come to the conclusion that you're just using me as your doormat, as your lightning rod, because you haven't anything else figured out in your life, I'm going to teach you how to do that for yourself, my friend. Right? To
That's
to
interesting, Jochen. Okay.
Because
No.
I think that is for me what friendship offers, is this kind of mutual scaffolding where the other person always levels you one up. But for that to happen, you better not be a pushover, because you can't level someone up if that person can always just come in and dominate you. You need to be able to stand your ground, and how important that is in a friendship.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because I always pegged you as a sort of I haven't pegged you as a pushover, to be honest. I don't think
You need to talk to my husband. He needs to hear that.
I don't think I have. I mean, the naive part that I mentioned aside, where I was like, is he bottom 25% or bottom 25, top 25%? Um, because like even saying that situation, if like you had already talked about the possibility of not getting your money back, right? Um, but also, like I've seen you like I feel like I've seen you in conversations where you have pushed back on ideas, you have pushed back on things, and when the way you push back is very interesting because you're like very whimsical as you do it. You laugh, and you're like, yeah, what do and like you back your ideas. So I've seen that. But you are right. I know the term boundaries are that term is overused a lot in things, and so people like have a difficult time figuring out what it means in what context. Um, but I do think I do have healthy boundaries, but my boundaries are really set up really early on, like in terms of I'll weed you out from a distance. Like you don't have to be close to me for me to weed you out and to like create the
Mhm.
boundaries or whatever. Um, and so by the time I let you in, like I'm already have a very good idea. Um, like the conflict has happened before I let you in. Like I've already figured out how we're gonna resolve conflicts, etc. If that makes sense.
And I certainly, that for me is in part what I tried to describe when I said practical wisdom. Because certainly when we met Namema, I hear Chang Yu standing behind of me, nodding vigorously, or like I could see him in my inner eye. It's not so much that I was a pushover, but I think I had this he, at some point, Chang Yu mentioned to me, do you want to be Mother Teresa? Where,
No,
where I,
was that during your giving? Was that money related or was that
no, 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 that, that,
totally
that was
different?
even, that was even, I think, before. Like, for instance, just to give you
Interesting.
an example, we walk into a store and I see someone wants to come out with a stroller, and not only will I hold the door, but I will literally go to the person, oh, can I help you with the stroller?
Mm-hmm.
So like as soon as I see like and the impulse is still there, but what is happening now is much more, and I think that's I think early on in my life it was really almost compulsive. There was a compulsion there, OCD of like I need to help people. And it came out of, oh, helping people is what keeps me safe. Because to the extent that as a kid growing up, I was able to support my mom in stuff, she wouldn't show up at some point mentally distressed and going back to the hospital. So for me, it was literally a survival strategy to pick up on needs of other people as they could just show up in the offing and I would already be swooning in and be like, hey, yep, let me help.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
But but it's not good for people actually, right? Because you keep them, and that's what I mean by this leveling up. You keep them potentially in a rather infantile, helpless state. As soon as you do things for people, especially when they haven't even asked for your help, you're almost signaling to them, oh, you can't do it alone anyway. Let me come in and save you. And it's not good for
Yeah.
people. It's also not good for the relationship with people. And instead, I've now over time, over the years, much more adopted a stance of like, no, no, at the very least, you've got to come to me. You've got to come to me. Come to me with all your problems. You can even come to me with your pain, and then let's look at that together. And then there's this discernment of, is it good for you? Is it good for me? Is it good for our relationship for me to share resources? And how, but it's still an ongoing learning process. And part of my inquiry here is really kind of to become even more aware of the principles that underlie whether or not it is good, like genuinely good long term. Is it good for the system between me and the other person for me to do something here? And what is it that am actually called to do that would be good? Because it's not a trivial question, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
have a homeless person and they are addicted to drugs, what is the good thing to do here?
Mm-hmm.
Do you just want to give them a home and give them a supply of drugs and say that at least makes them comfortable? Sure, it does. It really does. And if all that you care about is not see them on the street because you can't stand seeing people in pain, yeah, then you probably have to give them a home and give them drugs because then at least they're out of your sight. But what's the good thing to do? And it's such a tough question. And especially, of course, if it's a friend, because then you're directly impacted by their fate. But that's the other thing about sharing resources, right? To be aware, yeah, I don't have infinite blood supply and I can't help everyone. So to also think about, I want to be open to pretty much everyone's pain. I want to be in principle open and to have the discernment, what's the limit of my blood supply? And it depends on, because money is a different kind of blood than my actual blood, is a different kind of blood than my time, is a different blood than my attention, is a different blood than something else. And to just learn how to balance all of these things with my friends. And then the last thing I just want to say, to also really understand, yeah, friendship comes in, I wouldn't say buckets or categories, but there are really close friends. And this is something where I'm still also very much learning because probably as a remnant of my survival strategy as a kid, I have a tendency to try to see all of my friends roughly equal. Wouldn't it be great to have 50 best friends? But it doesn't work that way. And to be very realistic, it does not work that way. And that it is really natural and probably healthy and better for everyone involved to recognize, no, I have incredibly close friends who could call me at 3 in the morning and say, I ended up in the ER and I have a 5-year-old kid at home. Can you please come to the ER, pick up the key, go to my place, make breakfast, and make sure that my kid is at school at 8 in the morning? Where I would be like, yeah, but not to tell it to 50 people, let alone 500,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just like because to recognize there is a purpose of having very close friends And then friends who can come to you, but where you also have to at some point say there are limits.
Yeah. And if I may ask you a question on that. So, for
Uh-huh.
example, and I know we've talked about the money thing. On the money thing, like I would hazard that you were not depleted as you were helping at that. I'm pretty sure you were. I'm pretty sure.
I won't share my
No,
account
no, no. At the
details.
time,
No.
no, but you did share with me, right? You were not depleted at the time.
Yeah, yeah, no.
So, how often have you found yourself helping on an empty tank?
Ah, um, so like in fact, I think the only people no, so over the last few years, the only people who have come were like through the conclave thing. There was one person before who was a friend who I helped out a little bit, is a guy from Germany who came to visit me here in New York once, and then maybe a year or two later, he needed a cash infusion, and I was like, yep, and I got the money back. And then I had a similar situation with my oldest brother. But since
Mhm.
that's family, you may also already kind of see, well, that's different. And I think
Yeah.
that would be correct in saying that family is probably yet another category.
Yes.
But I would say over the last 15 years, at most a handful, like at most five situations that where it was, like a genuine infusion of cash, which turned out to be in every case temporary.
Yeah, because because to your question about how much you help, when do you stop, who do you help, in what capacity? I think the first question for me is, how are you? Like, how is Jochen? How's your
Uh,
tank?
mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
because if your tank is too full, then you're at danger of spilling over, right? So you kind of want to you expand in terms of how many people you want to help. Your tank is too full,
yeah,
your tank could explode, right? Then you have to be careful about your tank running empty because then your engine completely dies, right?
yeah,
And so if I'm operating between the 25th and the 75th percentile of, like things are just good, like I can help, whoever as much as I can, right? Now, you still have to be worried about, you can help someone and that even though your tank is at 75%, which is a healthy level, you can start helping them. And that already means that you're going to run to zero, right? Even though you're at 75 and you're starting there, that the commitment of helping here is going to bring you right down to zero at some point. So you have to be careful. So I think
mhm,
there's two things there, right? Where are you? And number two, what's the situation that you're dealing with? Is it like healthy? So if you're helping somebody who is a drug addict, um, you have, you know, I'm fortunate, like my house, I have two extra bedroom. So do I get a guy who's on drugs and like give them the extra bedroom? I have the capacity, but then what am I inviting into my
yeah,
house with two
yeah,
kids and a wife and like how, so I think it becomes difficult that like I could
yeah,
quickly find myself at zero and
yeah.
everybody else around me at zero. So you have to calibrate on the two sides is how I see it.
And And I would already say, Namema, so I'm glad that you bring this up because it points out to me some really important boundary conditions, some contingencies. One is if I give someone money, and I think I told you this many years ago when this occurred, I will see it almost as much as possible as a gift, where I'm giving a gift
Mhm.
with the understanding that if in time the other person gets to a situation where they can easily give it back, they can give it back. But where I don't feel
Yeah,
A debt. It is
you didn't
not,
ask, yeah, you
it's
didn't
not a
say I want
debt.
this money in 2 weeks or a month. You didn't say that. You just
No,
said
no, in
whenever you
fact,
can pay, go ahead and
I'm
do it.
giving this to you
Right.
understanding that receiving this gift will make your life flourish. You
Mhm.
can use this gift way better than if I kept it.
Mhm.
I have a sewing machine on my shelf, and by giving it to you, you're up and running, sewing clothes for the community, whereas for me, it's just sitting on my shelf. So it really like what idiocy for me had to have a sewing machine on my shelf, not using it. So here it is, have at it. And if you get tired of sewing clothes, you can give it back. So it's more that kind of spirit. But that is very, very different from, for instance, extending friendship to someone or opening your bedroom to someone. Because, if you give someone 5,000, $50,000, that is the limit. That person doesn't get access to your retirement accounts or to your bedroom or to other parts of your assets. But letting someone into your home, they for better or for worse, you like literally let them into your home. They are literally you may as well let them into your body in a certain way. You have to sleep and they could kill you, right? It's like it's as simple as that. Your life, you put your life into the other person's hand. So like letting someone into your home is for me even like more than extending friendship because you can cancel a friendship. You can go to the other person and said like, okay, you really did a number here. And I'm sorry,
Mhm.
my friend. And I talked about this with someone already, which and the transcript I will release soon, that I also want to explore what exactly does redemption look like? If a friend really does something where you feel like, okay, the friendship is on the line now.
Mhm.
I don't want to put an ultimatum to the other person because I'm not a control freak. At the same time, they have to demonstrate that they understand the severity of what has happened and some willingness for repair. And if they're not willing to do that, that's the end of the friendship. But kicking someone out of your house who has already stolen your bank account information and your valuables and everything, and now they run away with it, that's a bad idea, right? So letting someone
Yeah.
into your home is really like that needs to be very, very, very carefully deliberated.
Yeah, and Jochen, I think one of the biggest issues with letting somebody in your house, because it's a cultural thing, right? Like where I'm
Mhm.
from, culturally, we do that. We will let somebody into our house, not a dangerous person, right?
Yeah, yeah. No.
But it could be like a,
And I mean letting them into your house to sleep and especially to stay there while you're gone. So those two situations for me are really kind of the special case, right? Having someone
this
in your
is
house where you are still awake and you can call the cops and say, I miscalculated. I thought it was a friendly person, and unfortunately, as they started to make trouble, can you please help me remove this person?
Mhm.
That's bad enough, but at
Right.
least you could.
Yeah, and maybe it was a poor example to use like a drug addict, but the way that it manifests mostly is usually it actually mostly is family, and then it could also be friends, right? And the way that I mean of it is usually like they will basically need a place to stay
Mhm,
as they find a job or they're
mhm.
in town and they have a prospect in that town and they just need a place to stay for a bit. And then it ends up being like 2 weeks, a month and a half, you know, uh 2 months. And then there's just like the quirks of a new individual who is not enculturated into the way of being. Like they turn up the TV just a little too loud, or they open the fridge just a little too long, or you know, I don't know, or it could just be like these little quirks, so like they look at your neighbor a little too long, and they're staring at them. It's just these little things that you're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
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 I mean, this person's cool, but this is just not a great fit. Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? And so like in those situations, is where you can really find yourself um drained, drained really quickly, right? From like
Mhm.
city to like being drained. On then there's the money aspect. So there's that. And then there's also like on the giving money part of things, you know, I'd also be curious, if I'm giving money to Jochen, I'm under a lot less stress. If I'm giving money to some of our common friends, it's a little less stressful. I think it's usually, and again, right, when you talk about friendship, it's usually those friendships that are like less loose, more loose, I would say, or sort of like where you're worried about a disparity in economic situations where it's just like, this guy's definitely not gonna pay me back this money. I think those are the situations where, and that one doesn't, but that one, when you're giving money, like if you're giving it as a gift, you're not really worried about your tank going on
Yep.
empty, but you're just wary of like the accumulation of situations where people just haven't paid back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, to your point with an abundance mindset, should you care? Should you care if your mindset is, I'm giving a gift? Then you maybe wouldn't care. Maybe you have an abundance mindset that many of us are sort of admiring.
Um, so I can certainly tell you that my thinking, not necessarily my habitual feeling about it, but my thinking has evolved a lot. Um, to just briefly mention this, there have been at least a handful of situations now with decreasing frequency where someone said, "Oh, I'm going to come to New York." Someone I know personally, "Oh, I'm going to come to New York for a day or two. Would it be possible to stay at your place?" Where my initial response was just like, yeah, of course, in part because that's how I grew up, right? So people, extended family stayed over at our place. I would stay over at extended family's place all the time. No problem. What, like, what is the problem, right? I know someone, I think of them as a socialized person. they're they're not like, coming from the wild or whatever. Can they stay two nights at my place? Of course. The habitual emotional response. But then my thinking has really evolved, and it has evolved in large extent to because how Changyu habitually responded to that. And again, I want to make it very clear, there is no right or wrong response.
Mhm.
It's just a different response, right? There's a different feeling. Oh, I have someone come into my home, and I feel weirded out by that idea.
Mm,
Okay. And to fully understand, to really think about what does it mean to have a person who you know a little bit from a few situations and to have that person stay in a room next door where you couldn't stop them from doing anything, if you're honest. So think about it and then make a decision, right? And again, there's no right or wrong decisions, but just be clear what you're doing. Just be very, very clear what it is that you're actually doing here.
mm,
Don't hide by saying it feels normal, so it is normal, or it feels bad, so it is bad. Think about it. Think about it and make a good decision. And now
mm,
coming to the money issue and like the abundance and giving gifts. So I think those are for me the two major dimensions. What is my tank? And looking at the other person as a living vehicle, a living bit of life. What will happen when I transfer some of my tank's content to the other person's tank?
mm,
What is the consequence? What are the consequences? And to become really fully aware, are those the consequences I want to support? And if the answer is yes, what is the problem? And if the answer is no, then at the very least, I need to have a conversation with the other person about, yeah, so like looking at what is going on. on your trajectory in life and how your life is going at the moment, I feel that if I transfer some of my fuel into your tank, there are consequences there that I don't want to support.
Mm.
And then the other person
Yeah.
needs to say something back.
Jochen, when was the last time somebody transferred some fuel to your tank? Mm.
In terms of money, I mean, my employer does it twice a month.
What? That's
But
no, you know what I
like
mean.
as a
Like,
friend,
yeah,
oh, like in forms other than money all the time. In
okay.
monetary form,
You haven't needed that.
yeah, no,
You
I
haven't
haven't
needed
needed
that.
that.
Okay. And
But
so other forms, how has that looked like? Like, can you
yeah, it's
um
primarily in the
um,
form of time, right? Because
just
you
you
only
didn't
have,
you requested time.
yeah.
Were you sort of desperately in need of that time? Have you ever been desperately in need of something that you reached out to a friend for?
Uh, I certainly have memories of my desperation of someone getting back to me with some attention and
I mean, like
with
a
a signal.
need, right? Like a friend reached out to you. Friends have reached out to you for cash.
Uh-huh.
Um, you felt like somebody was, you gave the example. So we've talked about cash. We've talked about you having to give, not give, but like you've opened doors and carried strollers for people. What has somebody done for you from a friendship perspective in the last, I don't know, that you record recently?
Oh,
Or not even so
so
recent.
yeah. So I traveled to Asia in May, and two people, one that I had met at Columbia was a colleague who is like we're not closest friends because he lives in China, but I traveled to Japan and I told him in March, hey, yeah, so I'll be in Tokyo then and then. And I didn't specifically ask, but I think that's why I told him to see, like,
Can I,
and he
can
and
I
he
chill
and
at
he
you
was
for
just like, I'm gonna come to Tokyo and hang out for 2 days with you. And he did. Namema, it's like I can't even describe the beauty like of that gift
wow.
for
So
someone.
he didn't live in Tokyo. He lived
No,
in
he literally flew over from China to Tokyo
wow.
just for 2 days to hang out with me. And I'm like, can I have better friends?
Wow. That's a huge gesture.
And the other was like, so I met online a few years ago a jazz pianist in Seoul, just text messaging, whatever. But I think I signaled to him just how much his music means to me. And I also told him, so like at some point I would love to get to meet you in person. And he said like, oh yeah, like so when you come to Seoul, like maybe we can figure something out. And so I got myself a flight from Tokyo to Seoul and back. And I told him, and he took an entire afternoon, including showing me his music studio and having dinner together. And he did that. And we hadn't not met in person before. So that
So
for me are things where people are giving to me in a way that I couldn't like if I like I couldn't weigh up in money. I could
yeah,
not
so
weigh that up in money.
I think like in those two experiences that you've just shared, and thanks for sharing those. I would also ask about the same rules that you're thinking about on the other side, where you're
Yeah.
you're providing, right? The emptiness of the tank, the sort of like if they transfer it to you, um, like where you're gonna end up, et cetera, et cetera. It's actually very interesting to look at it from the two perspective, where you're giving and
Hmm.
where you're receiving, to really sort of establish um to establish those things. And so I would think like the fears that you have when you're giving, do you feel like they had those same fears when they were giving their time, you know? I wonder like if you feel like they had the same sort of like,
And
yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
really glad that we're talking about this because I'm realizing now, Namema, it is probably even think about for me, thinking about it with this image of the empty tank is already not to be in an abundance mindset, right? Because it is already kind of there's an empty tank. But instead to just think about impact. What is the impact of me giving money or time or blood or whatever? Because I could give money to someone who has $20,000, but who says, if I had another 10,000, I could start a business. So the
Right.
person doesn't have an empty tank.
Mhm.
They just don't have enough to go to the next level. And my question then is not, oh, does the person have an empty tank? No, then I don't have to give because they have 20,000. It's more like, what will it do when I give another $10,000? What will happen as a consequence? And if I understand, yeah, this person, that life will flourish in a way that really I can make happen, that is actually fun for me to see that. And so for me, it's not even thinking about just what is happening for the other person, but what is happening for me and what is happening for our relationship. And if I can give something, if I can give a resource and I can realize that person is like multiplying the impact way more than I would have with that resource. If I watched an hour of Netflix with my 1 hour of time, or I can give it to a person who, if I give that person 1 hour, their life will be turned around and they are gonna go to the moon. Where do I want to spend the hour? And it's not about does the person have an empty tank time-wise, like, or will they live a decrepit life if I don't talk to them? Maybe they will just have a happy life here on Earth. But if I spent that 1 hour, the 1 hour, for instance, when you asked me about the coding issues, if I
Mhm.
spent that hour, what will happen as a consequence of that hour? Can I boost this person to their next level? And if I can look at it that way and not so much worry about how empty their tank is, that for me is a much better way of deciding whether I want to give them the resource.
That makes sense. Cool.
Because here's the thing, if someone's tank is empty, but they have a hole at the bottom of their tank, so I put in, 20 gallons of gas, but then half an hour later, they're empty again. Giving them more gas is not what's needed. They need to fix their tank.
Right.
And so for me,
Yeah.
being homeless or being a drug addict, yeah, you need to fix your tank first, and then it makes sense to give you some gas, right?
Yeah. That's
And
right.
to really understand the impact of what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm very much aware that um, probably even among our shared friends, there's probably people who are very, very squeamish. No, that's not the right word, but at least who would ask me to pause by suggesting a consequentialist morality, by saying, just look at the outcomes, because intentions clearly matter. And yes, intentions do matter. But I would say it's really the combination of intentions and outcomes that matters, right? So just having the intention of helping someone, but then not actually thinking it through
Mm.
is probably not good enough.
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned culture. And by the way, I don't know if there's if you wanted to move on to something else, but just on the subject of, you grew up in Germany until you were what, in your 20s, maybe?
Early 30s.
Early 30s. So you grew up in Germany, then you grew up in the States. Then you continued growing. You continue to grow in the States. Right? You're not done, Jochen. You're still
No, no, I'm
growing.
not. That's
This
why I liked
direction,
it.
that direction, this direction,
Yeah,
that
yeah. No,
direction.
I'm still very
Those
much growing them in my, absolutely.
are um and I will also hazard that you have generally been exposed to people who are of non-desperate circumstances in terms of finances. Like they mostly you've interacted with people who have jobs or they have a social safety net. Um, and like from a cultural perspective, like I haven't necessarily had the same benefit throughout, right?
Yeah.
So I tell a lot of people that I'm here, like a lot of people, like I'm where I am today by the stroke of nature, just luck, and luck in the sense of, my father was one of the first kids born to my grandfather. My grandfather had a lot of kids. So he was one of the first kids born to my grandfather, which meant that he was born at a time when my grandfather had more resources of time, money, whatever.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so because of that, he was able to be pushed to actually stay in the right lanes and study and focus
Mhm.
when a lot of people were not trying to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so if you look at me, some people would say, hey, Namema, you worked hard, you went to college, studied bio and chemistry, and then you went to law school, blah, blah, blah. But really, it emanates from the situation that my dad was put in, because
Hmm.
not true for a lot of his really young siblings.
Yeah.
They didn't end up, they didn't end up in as good a place as he did. Like he became a lawyer, but a lot of them dropped out of school.
Yeah.
So, and friendships emanate, they can start from family. So I have a super large extended family and friends, right? But in those contexts, I'm mostly dealing with empty tanks. Like a lot of tanks are sort of empty, and it's just really hard to continually fill them up when I also feel like mine could run empty because I'm just so used to seeing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, that's the cultural aspect that I think can make. So this is my hypothesis. My hypothesis is that you have an easier time uh, with friendships, and you had a really good idea of friendships
Yeah.
more than myself, because
Yeah.
even though I have friendships mostly from the extended family too, it is a little bit harder for me to maintain them because of that
Yeah.
disparity.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit harder.
And for me, that is almost, I I feel that I live in a relational luxury. Absolutely. Right. When people use this kind of phrase, white privilege, I assume that that is in part what they mean. And it's really important to understand how much economic and parental and relational resources play into that, and that not everyone who is white has that, right? So it is really that I have that luxury or privilege because I did not, growing up, have people in my environment constantly who signal to each other, to me and my parents all the time, hey, our tank is close to empty and please, someone. But that was, yeah, it did happen, but it happened very infrequently. And when it happened, it was really kind of something that then could also be acted upon decisively. Whereas I think, yes,
Hmm.
If you yourself already don't have a lot, and then two or three people constantly hang around in your environment who subliminally, not all the time, but like there's always this background signal going on. No one ever has enough.
Hmm.
Yeah, wow, it's like it just sucks, right?
Yeah.
And I I'm not sure how much this current inquiry really kind of can help people bootstrap out of that. Because sure, I think it probably is still helpful to become aware of the difference between a scarcity versus an abundance mindset. It is helpful to know about that, but it doesn't all of a sudden magically, the secret, oh, I will just attract abundance. I like, forget about that shit, man. Like the world is still about actual energetic resources, and you as to feel your life is flourishing as an individual. You as an individual still need to have the experience. I have sufficient resources under my control to feel that I'm doing okay. And
Hmm.
if you don't know where your food is gonna come from a week from now, all the time, yeah, you don't have a lot of time for other stuff. Most of your time and attention will be bound by where's my food gonna come from in a week from now. And that's just reality. And like no matter how much you can say, oh yeah, but just like better education, and like it's like, yeah, it all sounds lovely, but let's be real. And yeah, to the extent that you feel that to this day, your family is an environment where people signal to that one another, that is really, really, really tough.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to have strong friendships across socioeconomic
Yeah.
strata, if you will,
And
unless Mhm.
the best
Un-
analogy I can give almost comes out of emergency medicine, right? Where you train a few people up to do triage and emergency medicine, and the community gives them the resources to do that. And then those people have the expertise to understand, okay, who needs help right now and who can be saved, and who do we just have to say, this is a lost cause. And then you give that decision up. You do no longer try to interfere with those people's expertise because you will get it wrong. You will have someone come in and think, but that's my brother. And then you will try to save them. And no matter how much blood you give, they they have a damaged heart. It's just like, that's it. It's like, and it's tragic. It is so fucking tragic to say, but it's my brother.
Mhm.
And I think in emergency medicine and triage, I think humans have learned in a way the hard lesson that those decisions you best leave to people who are not personally involved. Because as soon as you make it about those personal ties, you get your perception is just warped. And I think I really liked, and we didn't explore this fully a few years ago, but I liked the idea, maybe with Clinton and some other people, to say, can we set up a reasonable way of giving out microloans to people with almost like like maybe even zero interest conditions, but where the people giving out the loans are just doing a calculus of like, is this person going to do something good with the money? And you just go
Right.
to that person and you argue and you say, no, I'm not going to waste it on drugs or like on a new TV on this or the other thing, but I'm going to do something constructive with it. And then someone who's not your family member gets to decide that. Because as soon as you have that be like a family member, yeah, there's favoritism and there's status games and
Yeah.
this and the other thing.
No, that's totally right. I mean, that's totally right. That's totally right. But even No, you're right on that point. I think the other separate point is around whether you can just hang out and be on a group chat. Like just hang out and be on a group chat with someone who is struggling, right?
Yep.
And you
And
just have this like massive despair. And by the way, there are people who are sort of, because again, like the research says, if you have $70,000 and somebody else has, well, I mean, I think 70,000 is changing, especially in New York City. Like you can still struggle on 70,000, especially if you have kids, right? Um, but say if you have an X amount of dollars, which is comfortable, and another person has 5X, no importa, you know what I mean? Like I'm fine, right? Like Jochen, you're comfortable, you and Chang Yu. You can have a friend who has 5 million. Who cares? And I don't know if you have five
yep,
million, but I'm just saying like a number.
yep,
But if somebody is living family of four on $30,000, or even less, let's say $15,000, family of four, and you are living on 100,000, $120,000, two people, it can be difficult
yep,
to just even be in a group chat.
yep,
Just in a group chat. Forget like you have to give them money or whatever.
yep,
Just that like sort of like, hey, do you want to go? Like we're planning on going to the summer series concerts. Like, can you make it?
yep,
And the person is like, what are you talking about? I have three jobs
yep.
just to like make ends meet.
The image that comes to mind, and I will have to test this out now because I haven't thought about this deeply enough to know, oh, that's a good template. But the image that comes to mind is a few scenes, including I think the very last scene of the movie Good Will Hunting,
Mhm.
where the guys, right, one of them, Will Hunting, turns out to be a prodigy and clearly sees his career go off. And one of his friends tells him earlier in the movie something like, the best thing that can happen to me is one morning to come to your place and I won't find your I will find your apartment empty because I can't even pick you up because you have a better job.
Yeah.
And if you have that person as a friend who can look at your success and say, I'm so happy for you, that person I think you can be friends with. But how hard that is, because that person needs to understand no matter what the success of the other person is, and no matter how bad my conditions are, the friendship itself shouldn't just like be me going to the other person and be like, okay, and now you give to me. And how hard that is for people because it seems so natural to assume, oh, a friendship is also automatically sharing of resources. And it's
Yeah.
tricky. It is
It's
very, very
very
tricky. And I think it
it
has to
is
do with the cultural understanding of what friendship is, right? And I think so. I think in certain cultures, maybe people can, and in other cultures, I think people couldn't because of what exactly people understand when they hear the word friend.
yeah. I would still say it's I started watching Breaking Bad and I did stop watching that show. It was very ridiculous. Closer to the end of the show, I was
Yeah.
just like, what? I can't be watching this stuff. But I think about, I think about the teacher, his ideas getting stolen, building this multi-million billion dollar company.
Uh-huh.
And I see like him going to his billionaire or millionaire friend's house. And again, it just comes down to like, hey, we're playing paddle on Monday at 8 a.m. Like, can you join us? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? Monday, 8 a.m.? Like, okay. Well, we are gonna go to the concert. Guess who's in town? Who's in town? Taylor Swift is in town. Let's go
We're
see her.
gonna we're gonna have dinner with her after.
Exactly, right? Or like, oh yeah, so we're putting money together. Oh, I don't even have to go that far, but yeah, we're putting money. You know where that's going. So I'm just gonna
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
stop
yeah,
on that one. Closer to
yeah,
home, we had a
yeah,
group chat. We had a group chat
yeah,
where a mutual friend of ours was getting married in Jamaica,
yeah.
right? And these folks in there just, I mean, they're just not gonna go there. They're
Hmm.
not, they're not coming to Jamaica, right? But then it could even be a step. It could be, there's levels to this, right?
Yeah,
And so just across, I think there needs to be a lot of studies. There needs to be and you're starting to like scratch the surface of that. Like, how do you deal
yeah,
with money in that situation? How do you deal with, being in a same group chat with that kind with those kind of stratified friendships?
yeah.
Um, but because I think for the survival of for the betterment of our societies, we need to think
Hmm.
about how we can bridge that gap in an effective way.
Yeah. I I can give you not a solution, but at least an analogy or like a template that I think where nature has figured it out, but not on the level of humans, but on the level of like the different cell populations in my body, right? So for instance, take the cells in my intestines. They regenerate every couple days, brand new, so they don't live very long. They are the frontline workers. They're exposed to all the stuff that I stuff down my
Mhm.
throat, and they have to deal with all of it. And they're living and dying and living and dying and multiplying and this and the other thing. Whereas like the cells in my brain that get to decide things, they're literally shielded from that, called the blood-brain barrier. Nothing can touch it. But importantly, there are these signaling pathways between the viscera and my brain, the vagus nerve, that tells my brain whenever stuff happens that is not good for my body. And that is, I think, what is missing in human society, is where we have an inescapable signal where the people who make the decisions, who could alleviate some situations, they're not exposed to pain. And you can actually see on an individual level what happens when you numb that pain with painkillers. You will get sick, my friend. If you think, oh, I'm having a bodily discomfort going on, let me just throw in some pills. Sure, that goes well for a while, which is happening to human society, right? It goes well for a while, but sooner or later, this is gonna blow up right in your face. You may get cancer or some other stuff. And that for me is the analogy where you see that in human societies, where you have criminality popping up and all kinds of weird stuff and wars and I think what we do need is indeed an inescapable pain signal. And that doesn't mean that the people who are in pain get to dictate what happens, but that at the very least, the people who are in a much better position to make decisions can no longer escape from that signal.
Hmm.
And of course, it's going to be very uncomfortable for a while, but I don't see any other way out. And so when it comes to just a few people, let's say the Conclave Friendship Group, yeah, for the people who have the resources to at least be open to the pain signal and to recognize that and to deal with that in a way where it says, I recognize the signal is going on and I recognize that it is in the long term an untenable situation. And that doesn't mean that the thing that I now have to do is give up half my resources. There's no automaticity in that. But we need to look at the pain signal. So what is this pain about? What could be done? How could it be done reasonably well? What are the consequences of it being done? How do the people who receive some resources, how do they demonstrate growth in their capacity for then actually doing something positive with those resources. Because again, you don't want to keep putting gas into a tank with a hole in it, right? And all of that needs to be part of the conversation. And we're just not used to having that conversation because it is so painful to have, right? As soon as you have someone in a group, 10 people, and 2 people are really under-resourced, that's a very painful conversation to have here.
Mhm.
It's just a painful conversation for anyone to recognize, for the poor people to recognize, and for the rich people to recognize that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so for Conclave, I don't think you knew this, or maybe you did, but like we actually covered costs for a few people each time.
Yeah, no, I on some
Maybe you
level,
participated in the payment of it.
yeah, like I don't think that I have a recollection of like specifically.
Poor, but I
No.
think, yeah, yeah,
And I would, for instance,
yeah,
say whenever there's a group activity that literally everyone benefits from just by virtue of having a group activity, and then you have people who have less resources than others, it's almost like taxes where you have a progressive tax rate. That makes perfect
yeah.
sense to me to say, yep, like the people who have more resources, they just have a larger share just because the benefit is for everyone, and that should be in everyone's interest that this gets done.
Right.
But it's important that that happens voluntarily, right? Because as soon as you have this thing of like, again, what I have the problem is a kind of automaticity where, okay, there's a pain signal that just means, okay, the people who cry the loudest get the attention because that is what's happening on social media, for instance, and you see that that is not going well. That's
Right.
just a pattern that's not going well.
Hmm. So tell me about any other story from our friendship that's interesting to you that you recall.
Um, yeah, I would say the definitely the moment, and I think it was on our way home from visiting this, like a shared friend who was living at close to Yale and New Haven. And then I think on our way home, we stopped by your mom's place. And, again, I certainly felt, and this is maybe Namema something that is also like an aspect of attraction that I do feel greatly attracted to. I felt an absence of complication. I felt an ease. Here's my son, like from your mom's perspective. Here's my son, carload full of strangers that I never met. Come on in. And part of it is, and I get it, right? So it's these kind of very strange trade-offs, but it demonstrates to me a faith, not in the religious sense, like, oh, God will protect me, but a faith in just no matter how different people look like, no matter how little I know about them, they're fellow humans. And by showing them a certain kind of generosity of spirit, that's the way to treat other people.
Who else was in the car? I'm trying to
I
recall.
imagine Jocelyn was there, and I would imagine maybe like
Jocelyn.
one other person who we either met at iHouse or somewhere else.
Uh-huh.
And I think it might have been a cousin of yours who joined that day. I think it was 5 people. So it was probably you and either, I think, a cousin of yours, and then Jocelyn, me, and like one other person who may also have like known Hetty, but that is roughly my recollection.
Okay.
Or like Chocolachetu,
Hmm.
those really parties where, again, there is this element of, and it reminds me now of some other conversations that I've had where I talked about for me the some essential qualities of jazz, which is life on some level sucks because we're always put between a rock and a hard place. That is just what life is. It is always this kind of precarious thing where one wrong move and you're falling off the cliff, a tiger gets you, or you run out of money, or your mortgage is up, or like the bank forecloses your home, or you get a cancer diagnosis. Whatever happens, right? You're always one step away from disaster. And yet, let's celebrate this thing. It's a fucking party. And to learn to have enough attention on this kind of it's a party and how important that is for your life to actually feel that it's worth living because otherwise it is just a desperate fucking shit show. And that for me came across when like people were like, oh, let's have a potluck, let's everyone bring some food or whatever, or like you pay 20 bucks at the door, we're going to have some great music, we're going to even have a DJ, we're going to post about it on social media, it's in the neighborhood, neighbors are coming, friends are coming, people are coming, 50
Right,
people in the backyard party.
right.
In part because, yeah, where I grew up in Germany, that was all only ever like planned evenings with the neighbors. And it's not that as though that wasn't fun, but it was very clear exactly, you knew exactly who would be showing up, and those would all be like people who knew how to behave themselves, and there was no surprise, and there was also no, I mean, what risk is there? You have been living with the neighbors for like 10 years already, and you have them once a month come over, and it's nice. It's genuinely nice, but it doesn't have the spark of the moment of like the flavor of we are a tribe in the savannah, and we are really kind of surrounded by lion dens. And half a day march over is another tribe. But you know what? Life is too short to just be so afraid of everything. Let's call them over and let's have a party. That
Yeah.
feeling that people can develop, and how important it is to not forget that.
And thank you for sharing these because I mean you're not the only person. Like it's really good to know that the work that was being done, right? Like good work was actually like having an impact on
Hmm.
people and like different
Yeah.
levels, right? I mean, like inside their gut, a little bit outside, a little bit more outside. Um, so yeah, thank you so much for sharing that perspective. And I think you're right. Like the whole purpose of this was to inject a real joy in the people. And I believed, like I've always believed in what made us fortunate, and I feel bad like speaking as though everything's in the past, but what what made us fortunate was I think we approached the whole thing, started with a white paper, right? Like, and I can send that to you again. Like, I don't know if you when's the last time you saw it, but we started with a white paper. Like, it was extremely intentional.
Hmm.
It's extremely intentional. Like, what are we trying to do for people? Like, what are the feelings we're trying people to get when they walk in through that door? What are they experiencing?
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, I remember for one of the chocolateros, we had somebody go up with like mimosas. Like, as soon as somebody walks in the door, hand them a mimosa. Like, welcome in. Do you know what I mean? Like, that does something to someone, right? Like, even if you're having a bad day, just walking in, somebody being like, here's a mimosa. We hope you enjoy your time here. Like, oh my God, it completely just like soothes something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then when they go in, you know, they hand in their dish and somebody takes it from them and you say, how do you want to present this dish? Can we warm it? Do you want to put it in this? Do you want to put it there? And then somebody's there with a sticker and a pen. It's like, can we label it? Like, what do you call it? Where is it from? And then when they put it there, it's like, oh, have you met blah, blah, blah? Have you met blah, blah, blah? Have you met this person? Okay, this is where the stations are going to work. We're going to have this here. We're going to have that there. We're going to have this there. And it just like, and I did nothing. you know, like the work, I did the work ahead of time, but like it was sort of like this beehive where
Mhm.
sort of everybody, it was just like humming, like properly humming. So like I really appreciated that, and I'm really glad it attracted you. Um, but if I may ask, what has sustained the friendship then beyond their attraction over the years? And we don't talk every day, right?
No, no, no. Yeah, no, it's
Truth be told.
I
I love to get your texts, and I love when I talk to you. Like it's always, man, we've done Zoom calls in the past, just like catch up. But what do you think
um
about maintaining the friendships?
my intuitive sense is really it's just something that I would say I know deep inside that like Namema is in this world, and it is a better world for Namema being in this world. And there's just like this very deep knowing about that. And then having that experience of you as a person, yeah, whenever you appear in my consciousness, like as like, oh yeah, I know this guy Namema who I have this knowing about that he is good for being in the world. Is there anything that I can contribute? A little bit of time, a little bit of attention, and seeing how he's doing, and seeing just like, as stretched as the line between us is, as far as distant as it is, it certainly doesn't feel to me unstable or in question. But really it feels, no, this is a connection where if ever I were to hear, for instance, Nemanja has fallen on hard times. Yeah, there would be an immediate kind of pull saying, okay, what can I do here? And so for me, the strength of that is really to quite some extent, some intuitive understanding of, yeah, my sense of here's yeah, like almost like again impact. Here's how, if I pay attention to this part of reality, to this piece of life, the fragment of life that is Namema, by paying attention to that, how that improves the whole thing that is going on. And that, of course, just as you said initially, or like at some point, right? The fact how your dad was in the birth order from your grandfather, and that so many things are just the throw of the dice, and how luck plays a role there. To then come to understand, yeah, like the fact that I happened to meet you and you met me, that is all some kind of random occurrence, maybe. But then what do I make of that? What do I draw from that? And I certainly always felt that you are a person who grasps your life. And that has made it much, much more likely, I think, for me to see you as a friend. I think some people I have a difficulty connecting with as friends because I see them more as passengers rather than as drivers. And it can still be a lot of fun to support someone who is the passenger in their life. But I think it is much more fun to be connected to someone who is a driver in their life because it feels more alive. It feels just more alive with that person.
I think you're the you might be you might be the one person that I've had the most Zoom calls with.
Hopefully not.
The,
Hopefully as friends, not like with colleagues. I
no, as friends.
otherwise people might think, where is this dude working?
Exactly. He does nothing. But yeah, no, I think we have been, I think, and mostly it's just like we talk on text. It's like, hey, catching up, how's it going? Jochen, been a while. And we're like, let's do a Zoom call. And then we get on a Zoom and we talk about things. And sometimes we've had various topics because I've been going through something and I've been like, yo, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Um, and like I like the fact that like even if it's been like 4 or 5 months, 6 months out of the blue, y'all can text or out of the blue, I text and we catch up and I think that's been, you know, it's just been refreshing. And so to me, what that tells me is that we built a really good foundation
Hmm.
for the friendship
Yeah.
earlier on. And I think it's multifaceted, right? From being sort of colleagues to, you know, talking post colleagues and a problem that I was working on. And after that, getting even closer and doing the retreats together. And after that, keeping in touch after that. So, I mean, I think the last 18 years, is it 18? Yeah, no, the last 15 years have been great. The next 15 years will be greater. You know what I mean? I think we really have a good foundation there. So, it's my sense that the longer and more multifaceted a friendship is, um, the more opportunities there are for it to keep growing.
Yeah. And the importance of, and you brought this up with the conclave being this white paper and being very intentional. And I would say it is, I have come to understand that friendship is something that it helps if you can be intentional about it. And I'm now trying this out with a few people, and I'm still learning how to do it where it doesn't feel contrived or artificial or like weird to me, but where I really learn, yeah, let me just put something already in 2 months on the calendar that says,
Wow.
message this person, because it may occur to me naturally or it may not occur to me, and where I don't want to put it on my calendar weekly. That sounds like ridiculous. But why not just put something on the calendar and say, like, yeah, intentionally, in about 2, 3 months is a good time. Pick a random day in that month period, put it on the calendar. And if that day you don't have time, you just move it another day or two, and then you have time.
Exactly.
But to realize friendship is something where if you can be intentional about it, you will have a great time with it.
Damn, Jochen. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna start with you, and we're gonna have another conversation in 2 months, and I'm gonna do that with 5 people. I do think it really matters, especially because for men, and um, what does the word heteronormative mean? Because I don't want to use it wrongly. What does that mean?
It it means that someone thinks they figured out how this works.
Okay. Like just for I should just say for men in general. I think
I
there's a
think
lot
part
of
of the
this.
difficulty that I have with this word is that it seems to suggest it is stable and static, as though the relations between the sexes or genders hasn't changed over the last 200 years. I mean, we now have fucking contraceptives. Do you believe
Yeah.
that men and women still relate to one another as they did 100 or 200 years ago? Of course not. You just have to accept whenever the environment changes, behavior adapts. And it has adapted in pretty shitty ways in part.
Yeah.
But for me, like I think it does make sense to think about what would be some positive norms that we could have around how men treat each other. And I would, for instance, say one of the things in which two guys who don't want to be in a romantic relationship can treat each other is to say, if they want to be friendly, hey, I can learn something from you. How about you teach me some tricks? And if if what you see in me, you think you could do better, tell me.
Oof, oof, I love that so much. I love that so much, Jochen. I might take you up on that. I might reach out to you and discuss that a little bit more because that is the type of stuff that really animates me. But in terms of just men in general, I think we lose friendships
Yeah.
as we grow older, more than women. Um, a lot of men die a very lonely death. And so, you know, I've already been caught up in the whirlwind of family making, you know. So, like I shared with you, Alex was away last week, and so I was with the kids. I was in person with the kids at that time. And there's always gonna be, like I think what you're suggesting, what you're saying about putting something on the calendar every 2, 3 months is that sort of thing that can sort of keep my friendships without really feeling like it's taken away from family, because it's not, you know what I mean? But it's just that level of intention that's really important.
Yeah. And I like, for instance, I'm literally making this up on the spot, so this is not something that I have either done, but it occurs to me. It could be something as simple where a few hundred years ago, people might say, okay, every few months we have to go out and hunt a large enough animal to feed us for a couple of weeks. And then we rely on plants and whatever again. But like every so often, you have to go out with a group of men and hunt a big beast and bring it home. And since we no longer hunt for big beast, but you could hunt for big topics, you could hunt for big opportunities, you could hunt for something. Come up with a small group of like 3, 4, 5 men, and every 3 months say, we'll spend 6 hours committed time, Saturday afternoon, Saturday 3 to 9 p.m., whatever, and we're going to spend this time together hunting for something big.
I love it. I love
Bring
it.
bring a topic, like everyone brings a topic, and within the first 5 minutes, we decide together which one which one we're gonna do for the next 6 hours, and we're gonna do that in a committed time, right? And then you can figure some shit out. How do
Yeah.
we actually distribute resources in our group, or like whatever the topic is? Work on it together, figure it out, shoulder to shoulder, facing it together, where no one has to be so afraid of facing it alone.
Yeah. Amen. You're speaking like 10 pregnant women, as we say, making very pregnant points, which need to be birthed. Those points need to be birthed. Um, yeah, those are, and it's funny because it might also be true that a lot of the relationships that I have, friendships that I have, they do have a lot of intentionality, a lot of like, you know, working hard to make it happen. Like we have
Mhm.
Tommy, a friend Tommy in common, friend Eugene, and they we've all worked very hard to like stay in touch. I should say they're better than I am just because I can get lost in my head sometimes. Um, but they're very, and you too, right? You're very good at like incisively checking in, incisively being like X. X subject, what's going on? Have you thought about this? Boom. Mind-opening question, right? Namema, friendship. Let's go. Let's talk about that. Ooh, amazing. Cool. Like I'd love that. Um, and so I would love to learn about also I would love to work a little bit harder in cultivating friendships more than I have in the past. Really love to.
So yeah, let's I'm gonna pick a different date than you in 2 to 3 months, and you're gonna pick a date, but one of us will reach out to the other first, and then we'll see how we're gonna put another call on the calendar.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. Let's do
And
that.
yeah, in the meantime, please give my best to Alexa, and like also yeah, just one of the things that came out of a conversation with a friend a few weeks ago is where he said, so he never married and had kids. But he said all of his friends from high school and college that did get married and have kids, he saw that they, yeah, had this issue that a lot of their time got like
Sucked into that.
was flowing into their family life for good reason.
Right.
And to really become clear, how much friendship do you still have a need for? And then to make that happen. And where you may
Yeah.
feel sure in your 20s, maybe you really like to have like 35 friends or 50 friends, and now maybe you just want to have and say, no, I can't have 50, but I could have 8. And to then make it more
Yeah.
intentional with those 8 people or whatever it is, right? But to be at least also clear what is the level that you want, and then to make that happen.
Yeah. Because then your kids and your wife are those friends who are your roommates, right?
Exactly. They and
Yeah.
they of course they come first in a memo. Of like it's not even a question. It's like really, that's like
Yeah.
that is, I think, in
I
our
mean,
DNA.
even if yeah, they come first because they're right there. You know what I mean? Like even if you didn't want them to, it's not like a choice. Like I'm gonna put them
Yeah.
first. Like no, they're right there. Like the whole time. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not first for me. It's just like practically speaking, also
Yeah.
they're in your face every day. But yeah, no, I think uh Milky and Zazie, my kids, they're cultivating friendships. It used to be mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy, but now getting more friendships. So
Yeah.
they're growing, right? And um, Alex and I, like as a couple, we also need to rediscover our own friendship, like continuously rediscover that because it's going through so many phases.
Mhm.
Like these young 20-year-olds who are now parents who like have to navigate, like Zazie sleeps with me, Mookie sleeps with me, Zazie sleeps with Alex. But last night it was actually switched where Zazie slept with me, Mookie slept with Alex. But then uh once in a while the kids will sleep in the same bed and we'll sleep in the same bed. Like you have to so they were going through that phase and then post that phase it's gonna be like working with teenagers. So we always constantly have to rediscover that. And then obviously I miss just hanging out with my guy friends. Like, I really want to have sort of like a trip. Oh, I'm turning 40 this year, so you better look out for some information about what we're gonna do. I don't know yet, but I need to send that out quickly because it's July and my birthday's in December. So I'd love to just get, like us. I mean, when I say it doesn't even have to be just guys, but I just miss my friends. We get
Mhm.
together and do something. So yeah, I am definitely yearning for some of those friendships to continue being fostered as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, Jochen. Well, thanks for chatting, and we'll talk again pretty soon, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
Well, say hi to
That's
Chan Yu. Tell him not to be a stranger. He's being a stranger.
yeah, that's that's maybe for next for next time without and maybe also without the recording because yeah, no, I certainly don't want to talk about other people in in that way. And it's not
Yeah,
even that I think it is anything, like it's certainly nothing bad. But one of the things I can say is that I'm still very, very much learning the nuances of our cultural differences,
yeah,
where I can predict his behavior incredibly well by now. But to really kind of say that I have understood where it comes from, like
culture.
what is the source of that behavior? What are the especially the subconscious thoughts going on that lead to that behavior?
Oof.
There I'm just like, okay, you still need to explain to me because sometimes they're still like, I wish I understood why he's doing that, right? And which really tells me I have no freaking clue.
Yeah, that's a whole other part. That's a whole other conversation about cross-cultural whatever. Because we touched on some of that today, right?
Yeah,
Cross like cultural relationships and
yeah,
friendships and things like that's a whole other realm. And you're right. Like it's sort of like understanding the subconscious, and there's certain things that Chinese might be able to explain to you. There's certain things that you might need to explain to Chinese about himself, observations that even he can't make,
yeah, yeah,
subconscious that you can pick up on that he can't,
yeah.
and you need a safe space for it.
Until next time, then, Memo. I'm really, really glad this worked out. So thanks so much
Yeah,
for
man.
making the time.
Obviously. Cool. Catch you soon, man.
Until then, bye
Peace.
bye.
Bye bye.